Chapter 8. 2 or 3 times a year, all the herdmans would be absent at the same time, and it was like a vacation. You knew you wouldn't get killed at recess, you wouldn't have to hand over your lunch, and you wouldn't have to hide your money if you had any. We have even had easy lessons when they were absent. Boomer Malone said the teachers did that on purpose to give us all time to heal and get our strength back. But my mother said it was probably the teachers who had to get their strength back. Nobody knew why they were absent. Nobody cared. They didn't have to bring a note from home either, like everyone else, to say what was the matter. Why bother? The school nurse told my mother they would write it themselves. No one could read it, and it would be a lie. Besides, if they ever did have something contagious, they wouldn't stay home. They'd come here and breathe on everybody. You never knew when they would be absent either, but nobody thought this made any difference till they were all absent on a fire drill day, and our school won the fire department speed and safety award. I can't believe this improvement, the fire chief said. Last time it took you 34 minutes to vacate the building. What happened? You know what happened? Mr. Crabtree said. We lost half the kindergarten. Ollie Herdman led them out a basement door and took them all downtown. I mean, what happened this time? Nothing happened this time, Mr. Crabtree said, because Ollie isn't here. Neither is Ralph or Imogene or Leroy or Claude or Gladys. Where are they? They are absent, Mr. Crabtree said. The chief sighed. I thought maybe they moved away. Oh, well. He sighed again and said, in that case, he'd better get back to the firehouse and be ready for anything. Everyone was pretty excited about the Speed and Safety Award because we had never won anything before and probably never would again till the last herdman was gone from Woodrow Wilson School. So far, though, we could only be excited about the honor of it because we wouldn't get the actual award till Fire Prevention Day. There was a Fire Prevention Day every year, but all we ever got were Smokey the Bear stickers, so this was a big setup. There would be a special assembly with the fire chief and the mayor there, and the newspaper would send someone to take pictures and interview kids about fire prevention. Of course, fire prevention was the last thing the herdmans knew anything about, except to be against it, I guess, so you had to hope the reporter wouldn't pick one of them to interview. You had to hope they wouldn't show up for this big event wearing beer advertisement T-shirts. You had to hope they wouldn't show up. Maybe they won't, Charlie said. Maybe they don't even know we won the award. It's true that the herdmans didn't know much if you count things like who invented the telephone, but they always knew what was going on around them, which in this case was plenty. There were signs and posters about fires and firemen everywhere. All the blackboards said Woodrow Wilson Elementary School, Speed and Safety Winner. Kids were making bookmarks and placemats and writing poems and stories about our big accomplishment. We didn't even have hot dogs or hamburgers at lunch. We had fire dogs and smoky burgers. How could the herdmans miss all this? They didn't. Somebody in the 2nd grade brought in this great big stuffed bear, and they stood it up in the hall with a sign around its neck. Smokey says congratulations to the Woodrow Wilson School. And the very next day, there was the bear with its paw full of matches and cigarette lighters, firecrackers in its lap, and a half-smoked cigar sticking out of its mouth. Smokey, the firebug bear. Oh, that is disgusting, Alice said. What if someone reports it to the fire department? We might not even get the award. As usually, they're going to mess everything up and ruin the whole assembly, hitting people and tripping people and folding little kids up in the seats. I guess Mr. Crabtree came in the back door that day and didn't know what had happened to the bear because the first announcement was all about the outstanding fire prevention display by the 2nd grade. I want every student to stop by the 2nd grade room and see our very own Smokey the Bear, he said, and let's be sure to thank those 2nd graders for this. Then there were some whispers and a thwip sound as somebody put hand over the microphone, but you could still hear voices and a few words. Matches, horrible wet cigar, get rid of the bear. Then the secretary, Mrs. Parker, got on and shuffled some papers and cleared her throat and said that Mr. Crabtree had been called away suddenly and she would finish the announcements. Picture money was due by Friday. A Fred Flintstone lunchbox had been left on bus 4. There would be a meeting of the fire safety team in the lunchroom after school. Right away, Alice wrote this down on a piece of paper, as if she had so many important engagements that she had to write them all down. Imogene poked me. What's the fire safety team? It's for the assembly, I said. It's some kids who are going to demonstrate what to do in case of fire. Imogene shrugged. Throw water on it and get out of the way. Then she squinched up her eyes. What kids? Who's on the team? I was going to say I don't know, or who cares, something so loose that Imogene wouldn't want to waste her time, but as usual, Alice had to blow her own horn. I am, she said. There's 10 of us plus 2 alternates in case anybody gets sick at the last minute. It's not unusual for people to get sick at the last minute if they're mixed up with the Herdmans, so that got Imogene's attention. But it wasn't enough to hold her attention till Alice said, We're going to have T-shirts that say Fire Safety Team, Woodrow Wilson School, so we'll all look alike in the picture. I didn't even bother to say, Shut up, Alice. It was too late. You could tell that Imogene was already seeing herself in the fire safety T-shirt and in the picture. And there was only one thing that you didn't know for sure. Who, besides the 2 alternates, was going to get sick at the last minute. Naturally, Imogene wasn't the only herdman who showed up in the lunchroom after school. They were all there, slouching around, ready for action, draped over the tables, scraping gum from underneath the benches, chewing it, and this was old gum, shiny with germs and hard enough to tear your teeth out. There was at least one kid from every grade on the fire safety team, and they all had one eye on the herdmans. So Mr. Crabtree couldn't just ignore them, which is probably what he wanted to do. School's over, Ralph, Mr. Crabtree said. Imogene, Ollie, unless you people have some reason to be here, it's time to go home. We're just having a meeting. We came to sign up, Ralph said. Sign up for what? This is the fire safety team. Right, Leroy said. That. We want to sign up for that. It was on the announcements Gladys put in about the meeting after school. Mr. Crabtree opened his mouth and then he shut it again because there wasn't anything he could do about this. He had made it a major rule that anybody at the Woodrow Wilson School could sign up for anything they wanted to, no exceptions, and he had made another rule that everybody had to sign up for something whether they wanted to or not. So you had kids who signed up for 2 or 3 things, and you had kids who signed up for everything. And you had kids who wouldn't sign up at all till their teacher or their mother or Mr. Crabtree made them be something. What you didn't have was herdmen signing up for anything, till now. My mother said it was a good idea for the herdmans to be on a fire safety team. Who needs to know more about fire safety than the kids? Those kids, she said. Some people said at least this way you could keep an eye on them during the assembly. My father said it was like inviting a lot of bank robbers to demonstrate how to rob the bank. 3 kids quit the fire safety team right away before anything could happen to them. But their mother said they ought to get the T-shirts anyway in view of the circumstances. Mr. Crabtree knew what circumstances they were talking about. Herdmans. So he didn't even mention that. He just said he didn't have anything to do with the T-shirts. That's up to the PTA, he said. The PTA is providing T-shirts for the fire safety team in honor of this special occasion. The president of the PTA said they weren't providing T-shirts for kids who quit the fire safety team. Mrs. Wendelkin said they better not be providing T-shirts for the herdmans who had muscled their way onto the fire safety team. All anybody could talk about was T-shirts, but I agreed with Charlie, who said he wouldn't be on the fire safety team if you paid him, not even for 50 T-shirts. I watched them practice, he said, and when Mr. Crabtree yells, drop and roll, all the herdmans drop on somebody like in a football. They dropped on Albert Pelfrey and nearly squashed him flat, which wasn't all bad because, as I said, Albert is this really fat kid, but Albert quit the fire safety team anyway. I've got enough trouble just being fat, he said. I don't want to be fat and dead both. At the last minute, two kids got sick, or said they did. And right away, both the alternates quit, which didn't surprise anybody. You don't want to quit, Mr. Crabtree told them. This is a big opportunity. He meant it was a big opportunity to take part in Fire Prevention Day and to get a T-shirt and have their picture taken. But it was also a big opportunity to get pounded 2 feet into the ground by the herdmans. I can only be an alternate, Roberta Scott said. I can't actually be in it or anything. Roberta, that's what an alternate is, Mr. Crabtree said. It's your responsibility to be in it and everything. You too, Lonnie. Lonnie Hutchinson was the other alternate, and he said he had to quit because of his asthma. Nice try, Lonnie, Mr. Crabtree said, but you don't have asthma. I know who all has asthma. I know who has pink eye and poison ivy and athlete's foot, also coughs and colds and nervous stomachs. Mr. Crabtree didn't mention any other diseases, and then when Lonnie's mother called the school to say that Lonnie was sick with a rash, Mr. Crabtree didn't believe it. Too convenient, he said. It's probably finger paint or magic marker, something like that. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw Leroy Herdman walking around with red spots all over his face, looking for trouble. I just told him, Leroy, go wash your face. And the next time I saw him, all the spots were gone. But it wasn't finger paint on Lonnie. It was chicken pox. And before you could say Speed and Safety Award Assembly, there wasn't anybody left to go to it. Mr. Crabtree wanted to postpone Fire Prevention Day, but the fire chief said he couldn't do that. It's Fire Prevention Day all over town, he said, all over the state. You can't just have your own Fire Prevention Day whenever you want to. Tell you what, though, if you'll get together a small group of whatever kids you've got left, your fire safety team would be good and bring them down to the fire. Your fire safety team would be good and bring them down to the firehouse. We'll have the award presentation right here. We'll make it a big event. It turned out to be a bigger event than anybody expected because the pizza parlor ovens caught fire half an hour before the presentation. They put the fire out right away, but Mr. Santoro made all his customers leave because of the smoke, and most of them just followed the fire engine back to the firehouse and stayed for the presentation. Some people thought the fire was part of the presentation, especially when Mr. Santoro showed up with all his leftover pizza and handed it out for free. Everybody said this was a great way to advertise fire prevention, and they congratulated the mayor and the fire chief for thinking it up, and the fire chief congratulated Mr. Santoro for donating the pizza. The newspaper reporter got it all wrong, too. Mock fire stage to highlight Fire Prevention Day, he wrote. Restaurant owner contributes pizza for large crowd attending award ceremony. School students honored for safety techniques. The honored students were what was left of the fire safety team. Ralph, Imogene, Leroy, Claude, Ollie, and Gladys. And there was a picture of them standing in front of the fire truck, looking like a police lineup. You could imagine an officer saying, "Now which one of you did it?" And the victim saying, "I can't be sure. They all look alike." They did look alike, except for being different sizes. Plus, of course, they had on the famous matching T-shirts. If I didn't know better, Mother said, I would think this was the Herdmans being honored instead of the school. This turned out to be the general opinion, and so many people called the newspaper to complain that they printed another story. Woodrow Wilson, despite chickenpox epidemic, wins Speed and Safety Award, which my father said was better than nothing, but not much. What does chickenpox have to do with it? He wanted to know, but my mother said he was just tired of watching Charlie and me scratch. Mrs. Wendelkin made Alice sit in a bathtub full of baking soda water so she wouldn't scratch, and made her wear those white cotton gloves so she wouldn't scratch. And when Alice came back to school, besides having puckery seersucker's skin, she was still wearing the gloves. I don't think that's necessary, Alice, Miss Kemp said. I have to wear them while I'm thinking, Alice told her, so I won't forget and scratch. If you scratch chickenpox, they get infected and leave scars. Not on Leroy, Imogene said. Not on Ollie. Not on... Wait a minute, Miss Kemp said. Leroy? Ollie? I wasn't aware that any of your family was absent during our epidemic. Oh, we weren't absent, Imogene said. Miss Kemp frowned. But we had chickenpox, she said. You mean? Did I have chickenpox? Imogene said. This was like talking long distance to my grandmother without her hearing aid, and just like my grandmother, Mrs. Kemp didn't try to pin it down. If you have chickenpox, you can't come back without a note from the doctor, she said. And Imogene said, oh, okay, and got up and left. So no one ever knew for sure whether they did actually have chickenpox or how many of them had chickenpox or exactly when they had chickenpox. And no one ever knew for sure whether they came to school and breathed on everybody and ruined our big award assembly or whether they were all sick and stayed home on the fire drill day so we won the award in the first place.